Hey guys, welcome to True-Moto-Resto. Today what I'm going to try to do is to fabricate a new rear fender for my 1990 Kawasaki ZX7. The fender that I have, which is this is the stock rear fender. Well, I guess I should say it's what's left of the stock rear fender. So unfortunately, like so many sports bikes of the 90s, if it didn't get a pre-production or pre-manufactured tail tidy or tidy tail unit, a lot of times people would just hack off the rear fender indiscriminately, and you'd end up with something like this, which is really only the piece that attaches to the rear subframe of the bike. And maybe you have a little bit of something left to add a license plate onto, but nothing else. The whole idea obviously being to tidy up the rear end of the bike. What the objective is here is I want to retain this, because this is the piece that attaches to the bike. And then I've acquired a couple of donor pieces. So first of all, I guess I should say that finding a complete one of these is probably next door to impossible. So until that day comes, I'm going to try to make and graft on something that will be very, very close to the original profile of the rear fender. And how I'm going to attempt to do that is I'm going to take a donor component, which it'll either be this or it'll be off this. So this is off a GSX-S 1100, I think, or GSX-S 1000, something like that. And then this is off a ZZR 1100 Kawasaki. One of the guys on the forum was kind enough to take a side profile photograph of a stock rear fender. So in order to get the right size and shape, what I did is I brought, this is not my computer screen here, but what I did is I brought the photograph that he sent me up on my computer screen. And he also included this part in this picture. So I was able to hold this up against the computer screen with the photograph on it to get exactly the right size on the screen for the photograph. And then I put a piece of paper on my computer screen and I traced around it for the actual side profile of the rear fender that I need. So that basically will go on here, something like that. That will be the basic profile of it right there. Something like this. What to do here is, before I start hacking and chopping at fenders, I'm going to make a template using that, transfer it onto some cardboard, and then I'm going to make it something that will fit the right size and shape onto what is left of this fender base. And then once I've got the right shape in cardboard, I will transfer that over to one of these fenders, whichever one I think is going to be the best fit. Alright, so the first very basic and crude shape that I need to add to this rear fender is here in cardboard. And this is, obviously this does not have to be the perfect shape and bending and curvatures and whatnot as far as these corners go. This is just so I can make sure that if I need to cut anything out of the top, or where the reflector mount is supposed to go, I can make the appropriate cuts and reliefs here. And then similarly, where I want to join it to the existing plastic, I'll have to probably cut out some profiles along the sides to get it to fit. So where we're at. I got the basic shape here. On the stock Fender, this flat piece here, where I think the rear license plate light mounts to here, it actually continues down into the fender, and obviously that's been cut off. So basically, from a side profile view, it looks something like that, and then it continues straight on down. I think there's just a little raised section in here as well, but we'll see how we get on with the rest of this first. So this is the basic shape that I wanted to get, and from here I should be able to establish something reasonably close. So the next step is I'm going to take this off the stub fender, and then I'll start to transfer that over. So after lots of messing around, here's where I'm at the moment. So far I'm gonna try this GSXS fender. I think it's going to be the least complicated fit. So glad I made the templates, because it's basically telling me that I'm just not going to get the fit at the top here using the other fender, and still being able to maintain the right profile with it. So this one, the challenge will be, I'm gonna have to, when I cut it, I'm gonna have to kind of straighten out the edges here, because there's a bit of flaring in here, and the piece I'm graphing it onto is much straighter. Alright, so here's what we have so far. It's coming along. We'll see how she turns out at the end of the day. But so what I've started to do here is basically, this is just plastic welding. So I've got the one side partially tacked on. I have this section tacked on, and then this section. And then I've started doing the same thing on the inside as well. So basically what I'm doing with the, I've just got a cheap soldering iron, which I use here. This one you can kind of set the temperature on it. It's just an Amazon cheapy guy. I've got a few different ones, but this one seems to work pretty well. It heats up quick. Has kind of like a chisel tip on it, if you could see that. Seems to work all right. So basically I'm just melting the two sides together, and anywhere where there's a little bit of a gap that I need to fill, I just take and use a piece of material that I cut off. So that might be used to fill in a gap, and then once I've stitched the thing together, melting, you know, the old part of the fender to the new part of the fender, then I go back over it again, and I use this polypropylene welding rod to weld it a little bit stronger. So, and you can see here the outline of the fender that I still have to cut in the silver Sharpie. I haven't cut that yet. I'm just focusing on the upper part for now. All right, so I'm gonna just film a little bit of the welding process here. I've got a couple of pieces of the filler pieces of polypropylene plastic, which is going to go into some of these sections here, and so I'll film a little bit of it. I'm not going to film all of it. If I do, I'll put it on time lapse, but just to give you an idea. And I think just the other thing that's important when you're plastic welding this sort of stuff is make sure you've got something like a well ventilated area. I keep a fan going just because I don't want the smoke that comes off this plastic hovering around my face going into my lungs. And I also wear a respirator mask as well, just for a little bit of extra protection. And when you're using like the Dremel tool to cut this stuff up, this plastic. Just make sure also you wear some sort of eye protection, because as it melts, it flies all over the place. It goes in the eyes real easy, so you got to be careful with that sort of stuff. Okay, so take this mask off here. So I've got all the pieces that I put in here. The sides, you can kind of see it's in there, but it's pretty messy at the moment, which is fine. It's just kind of the way it goes. So you see that what I've done is I've basically welded it on the inside and on the outside. So that way it's what I try to do is to penetrate 50% of the way in on the inside, 50% of the way in on the outside. That way you kind of get okay. So there we go. Pretty close to being done with that. So now it's welded up all the way around. So now the next thing is I'm gonna get either a bit onto my electric Dremel or an air Dremel, and I'm gonna basically grind all of the kind of the rough surfaces off here. And then once I know that epoxy that I used is going to stick properly, because the worst thing that can happen here, well, not the worst thing, but it's not a good thing, is you start to smear the epoxy filler on here and find out that it won't adhere to the polypropylene properly, and then trying to get that off, you'll never get it all out of the crevices and the little nooks and crannies, and then you end up with a huge mess. So it's best that's why I use a test piece to make sure that whatever epoxy or whatever adhesives or fillers I'm using are gonna work okay on the particular kind of plastic that I'm using. Alright, so here we are after welding and a little bit of sanding and grinding. So it's basically in one piece. So now the objective is going to be to find what kind of filler I can use that's going to properly adhere to polypropylene. And then next dilemma is, do I cut this to conform to the shape that I'm actually looking for on the Kawasaki, or is it going to actually look better being okay, let me rephrase this. It's not going to look better being a longer, but it might look better having like what I'll call a factory lip on the edge of this. I mean, this is not an OEM Kawasaki Fender anymore, but aside from being a little bit longer, is it going to look better? Is it going to look more correct leaving this lip on here? My worry is if I cut it to the right profile, which I can easily do, it might just look like another chopped Fender. So that's going to be my next decision point on this. Okay, so here's why we test. Okay, I mean, this is not like really coarse sanded or anything, so I mean it's going to be, the adhesion's going to be somewhat questionable, I guess. But this is the flexible product. And apparently it does work on polypropylene. I looked at the instructions, but it's just too flexible. It just peeled right off. So, and since I want to be able to blend the filler onto the smooth part of the fender, not just so, I kind of want to be able to come down a little ways, right? So when you sand it, you kind of get a nicer finish. So that's not going to work. It's too flexible. The adhesion on this is a little worrying. So what I've done is I've switched over to this semi-rigid, and I've used this before, but not on polypropylene. I've used it on polyurethane. So we'll let that dry and we'll try that side. I sanded it a little more to a coarse finish underneath with the Dremel tool, kind of to mimic the kind of finish that I might have here. So we'll see how that works. All right, so we're getting a little bit closer to getting this thing where it needs to be. What I've been doing is I've actually had no success with the plastic repair, the bumper plastic repair. It just no matter which of the products I used, it just kind of wanted to peel off the polypropylene surfaces here. So instead, I've reverted to my my plastics kit, and basically what I've been doing is sanding the surface, dripping on the plastics repair, and just kind of building it up kind of slowly in layers to try to get this to a better finish. And then I sand it some more, and I'll put a bit more plastics on it, and then I might end up in any of the imperfections where the plastics is. Maybe I'll try a conventional surface filler and see how it works out. But we're getting there very slowly. It just takes a long time to sand this stuff. Okay, so what I've done is this is just a very thin coat of surface filler on here, and I feel okay with putting this stuff on because the places I put it is the places where I've got a layer of plastics on here, and I know I've had success in the past with regular surface filler bonding well to a plastics repair. So by the time I shave and sand the rest of this filler off, there's not really going to be much of it left in there anyway. It's just to take away just the last few little imperfections on there. So once I get that sanded off, then I will use some Krylon Fusion paint, which is a plastic paint, adheres well to plastics, to repaint this. So. All right, so here it is. I've just got a very thin coat of filler. The main areas I have to fill obviously were right in the corners here. Everywhere else it's just really some slight imperfections. So everything's been cleaned with acetone. So I'm going to put a drop sheet down, and I'm going to give it a shot with some Krylon Fusion. Probably this stuff might be the closest finish. It's a plastic. This is like a satin black, so hopefully this will do the trick. All right, so this is basically the finished product. Of course, it still needs to fully dry when he's finished painting it, but all in all, I think it's going to come out reasonably well. I still have to drill holes in here once I know where I want the rear signal lights to be mounted on the side, and we'll probably have to create some sort of a reinforcing structure inside there. I'm not sure. We'll see how it is, but yeah, all in all, I'm reasonably happy with that.